order. We're a little bit late. The Bloodmobile was here today, and we were glad to see him working right up to 6 o'clock, or close to 6:30. So we'll call the meeting to order and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
No flail.
Working on it.
Maybe it still is on the and I shut the heat off. So it's warm up in here. We always have it cold in here. Thank you, Pat. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'm going to take a quick roll call with James,
Yes.
Larry,
Yeah.
Isla,
Yes.
and Bob.
President.
So with all members present, I want to draw attention to the fact that we do have the Open Meeting Act rules posted. And we have the June 7th minutes in your packet. So hopefully you have those read and ready to go. And so I would entertain anything that you think might need to be changed on it. If not, if there's no amendments, then I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the June meeting minutes.
Okay,
I'll second that.
motion by Bob, second by Isla, to approve the June 7th meeting minutes. Larry? Pike?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Isla?
Yes.
And James?
Yes.
You have in your packet 3 ordinances. They come in the order that they're in. The first one in your packet is the amending the duties and powers of the mayor. At the last meeting, you asked our attorney to take out certain things out of 314 and to eliminate 214, and then to write a ordinance which would reflect the state mandates of the duties and powers of the mayor. So that is in your packet. You've had time to see it. We can, by motion and vote, opt to not have it read 3 times, or we can do the 3-time reading. I think it's important that we read it. So since you've had it, is there anybody that has a question, first of all, that you want clarified, particularly on it, before we get any further? Okay, so then, Mike, I would like you to, I'm going to give you this and kind of explain what changes there with that.
Sure. If you turn to the ordinance itself, let me give you a little bit of a background on this to make it make sense. You know, in Nebraska, you have different types of ways to govern. Basically, it's based upon the population of your group. Of course, you have your larger cities, and sometimes you'll see in the newspaper they have a strong mayor system or they have a weak mayor system. And that's really dealing with your cities like Lincoln and Scottsbluff and Omaha and that type of stuff. And when we're talking about a weak and a strong mayor, it depends upon whether or not that mayor has authority to appoint or remove the city administrator. So if they're a strong mayor, they can come in and just completely change the administration, and that makes it a strong mayor. If not, then you have a city administrator that the council appoints. That's where that designation comes in. Then the next level really is dealing with populations that are where you see that it's a city of, like city of Crofton, obviously. And in that situation, you have an ordinance, and the language that's in the ordinance that you're looking at now and you're going back to is one that's all the wording, all the language is exactly from the state statutes. And then, of course, then you have villages. And in their situation, it's really, you maybe have someone who conducts the meetings, but their vote is the same as everybody else. They participate in all other, in the business itself. And so you really have a situation where you don't have anybody particularly, so if any of your taxpayers have a problem, they contact any and every person that's on the board and to deal with the situations. But that's dealing with villages of smaller number of people. Cities can actually do that, go to that level, but you have to have a special election to do that. When you're dealing with the city powers, what you have on here, if you look at 104.1, you have the mayor presides on all the meetings. The mayor may vote when his or her vote would provide an additional vote to attain the number of votes necessary to have a majority. It also provides that he or she shall have superintendents who can control all the officers and affairs of the city. And so it's kind of a quasi city administrator type of a thing. Who does the taxpayers contact? Well, they contact the mayor. But as far as actually voting on things, the mayor's vote really doesn't come into play unless there's an issue where you need a majority vote to get something done. 104.2 talks about the veto power. So there's certain things that you can, as the council, will take over making these decisions, but the mayor has an authority to veto it. But just like our federal government, you as a council have the right to override that veto, and that's what that deals with in that section there. In 104.3, the mayor can make recommendations to those different areas. 104.4, the mayor has to make reports, and the other two are really dealing with qualifications of it. So this really is a change that if you adopt, really is going to change how you guys do business here. And it'll be, you still have someone in the mayor's position who, the people are going to probably contact more on a day-to-day basis, I would guess, although that doesn't prevent anybody from contacting the council members as they do now. But the council's taken on a lot more responsibility as to what you're going to be doing, and as far as what's on the agenda and the action that you're actually going to take. I think it'll take a little bit of time for people to make this transition, and it'll be a little bit of a transition for yourselves too, because you as a council are going to be taking on a lot more responsibility as to what goes on. And in that regard, I think Councilmember Evans had mentioned, that it might be a good idea to have different committees, liaisons, that each one of the council members would be responsible for to bring information to the council. For example, you may have someone who's liaison who deals with finances. Somebody might be doing public work. Somebody might be doing economic development. I mean, there could be whatever you would set up, but that person would be kind of the contact person to keep up on all of those different ideas. As the mayor, under this ordinance and under state law, presides at these meetings, and I think one of the things that I've observed, is that, and it's in your ordinances as well, is that you're following the Robert's Rules of Orders, and what that requires the chairman to do, is to recognize whoever's going to talk. So it's not a matter of somebody starts talking and whoever's the loudest gets to talk the longest. That applies not only to the council, but any of the members of the public who are here too. That she needs to recognize those and make sure we don't have two people talking at once. I think also you need to, you as a council need to think about the agenda itself and how that's prepared. And what I mean by that is that at some point, you need to, as a council, decide as of what day are we going to decide what's on the agenda, and after that day, we're not going to be adding anything to it. You do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, you want your staff to be able to be prepared to get you the information that you need as a council to make decisions, to get you that information that they have that's available to them, as well as you want to be fully informed, so if someone in the public asks you a question, that you can fully answer their questions or to ask for additional information. So I think at some point, I think it'd be great if you guys could decide on a deadline to be on the agenda. I know when I was on the school board in Yankton, we had a deadline, and if it wasn't on there, we'd just have to go to the next meeting. And also, I think what goes on and in what order that you talk about it. There needs to be some cooperation between the chairman of the council as well as the mayor in setting up that. I mean. For example, I think it'd be great if you had your agenda set up where, we all know there are certain things that are going to be pretty easy to get through, and let's get through those and leave the ones that are going to take some time at the end, so that you can get as many things done on your agenda as possible. So I think it'll be a transition. I think that you as a community have some excellent people in these positions on your council with a lot of great expertise across the board. So I think it'll be a good change for you in that regard, and I think that's all I've got.
Okay. So I believe that the first procedure then is to hear a motion to, what's the word I
You want to
want?
suspend?
Suspend is the word I
You
want.
want to suspend the rules if you want to.
Do we want to suspend the rules of reading this for 3 times?
I'll make a motion to suspend the rule of 3 reading pass.
Okay, motion by Bob, second by Larry, to suspend the rules of the 3-time reading. Isla?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
And Bob.
Yes.
So with that, then I think that that rule actually says it must be read by title. So by title it is an ordinance of the City of Crofton, Knox County, Nebraska, amending the duties and powers of the mayor. Be it ordained by the mayor and the City Council of the City of Crofton, Nebraska, that Chapter 1, Article 1, Section 104 of the Municipal Code of the City of Crofton, Nebraska, is hereby amended, approved, adopted, and passed as part of the Municipal Code of the City of Crofton, and included in said document is set forth hereinafter. And then those sections that Mr. Stevens alluded to are given. So if we have suspended the rules for 3 times reading, we've read it by title, so we would entertain a motion to approve the ordinance, and this would be ordinance number 77/2021. And we will put in parentheses there number 1, because there are 3 ordinances, so we'll do it by that designation also. So if someone has a motion for that approval.
I'll make a motion for the approval.
Motion by Isla to approve ordinance 77/2021.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Larry. We'll start with Bob.
Yes.
Isla.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
And Larry.
Yes.
Okay, so The next ordinance in your packet is an ordinance of the City of Crofton, Knox County, amending the subdivision regulations, and this is something that Mike Chase and his group in the Planning and Zoning have been working on for a while and have come up with what they feel is pertinent and important to the community and fair. They have submitted that to us some time ago, and so that comes before you tonight. Again, I would need a motion to suspend the reading of the ordinance 3 times.
I'll make a motion to suspend the ordinance for reading.
Bob has made that motion to suspend,
I'll second.
seconded by James, and we'll start with James
Yes.
and Larry
Yes.
and Bob
Yes.
and I.
Yes.
So by title, an ordinance of the City of Crofton, Knox County, amending the subdivision regulations of Section 8-601. Be it ordained by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Crofton that the subdivision regulations of the City of Crofton referred to in Section 8-601 hereby replaced by the new subdivision regulations referred to as the Land Subdivision Ordinance for Crofton, Nebraska, and incorporated herein as if fully set forth at full length herein. An official copy of the Land Subdivision Ordinance for Crofton, Nebraska shall be on file at the office of the city clerk and open to inspection and available to the public at all reasonable business hours. That is a fairly large reading to do if you read the whole subdivision ordinance. So then I would entertain a motion for the approval of ordinance number 7/7/2021, parentheses number 2.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 7/7/2021.
Okay, motion by Larry,
I'll second.
second by Bob. Isla,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and Larry.
Yes.
Okay, so the third ordinance in your packet is an ordinance of the City of Crofton authorizing and permitting the use of golf carts on public roads in the city of. Be it ordained by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Crofton, Nebraska, that Chapter 3, Article 4, Section 406 of the Municipal Code of the City of Crofton, Nebraska is hereby approved, adopted, and passed as part of the Municipal Code of the City of Crofton, included in said document as set forth hereinafter. The golf carts operation, there is, I think this would, should we have at the top of that, Mike, it says in the title on public roads in the city of, we probably should fill in Crofton.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And then on page, on the back page, under 3409.6, any peace officer including the conservation officer may enforce the provisions relating to snowmobiles, but we want golf cart there, right?
Yes. This is the only one my staff let me type.
Okay, so with, we've read by title, so if we could have a motion to suspend the reading
With the amendments.
with the amendments.
I'll make that motion.
And so that's motion by James, second by
I'll second it.
Larry. Isla,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes.
So now we need to make a motion to then approve ordinance number 7/7/2021, parentheses 3, with the noted changes.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 77-2021 number 3.
Okay, so
I'll
Bob
second.
makes the motion, James makes the second, and the vote goes Larry,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and I.
Yes.
Okay. So, next on the agenda is the approval of claims, and those are in your packet as well. I want to draw attention to the pre-approved bills. We don't have a figure in the Black Hills Energy and the estimates, and Lisa and I were just looking at that. That varies a lot by season, so I thought maybe we would run a 12-month thing there, or we can change it month by month if we need to. But if we put kind of an average there, because in the winter time we paid, one month we paid $800 or $900 for the auditorium heat or the shop and so forth, and then in the summertime there's nothing. So wanted to point that out, and then if there's any other questions on that,
I have one, Cheryl.
okay.
Yeah.
TIF money is tax incentive financing. We have one place in town, it's the Lewis and Clark place out there, the motel and that, and well, the motel may not be involved, but the filling station. That goes back to that blighted area, and they got the TIF financing. We still get a check from the county separate from the other taxes, which identifies that as the money that needs to go back to them.
And it's on here twice, is that a misprint?
Probably.
Okay, it's the same
Oh,
amount.
it's under.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
it is.
Okay.
Yep, sorry.
Tim Arms, is that the street from the apartments, or is that
There's several.
oh, there's several?
Yeah, there's over there and over there and over there and over there.
Were they emergencies?
Well, we put new sewer in.
Well, I
and
asked you, were they emergencies? Were they emergencies that had to be done, or do we go and get estimates now? Or does this Tim Arch just do everything in Crofton? We need to get estimates when we have non-emergency problems.
I think that from my standpoint is that there are a limited number of people who have worked with us over the years that knows the whole pattern of where we are. Tim Arns has been our go-to. I don't know what the rule is as far as.
Well, I knew if we had emergencies, Tim Arch takes care of it. When we don't have emergencies, I thought we were getting 2 estimates, and it wasn't an emergency like it had to be done like tonight or tomorrow morning. That's what I'm asking. Somebody asked me, how come none of us get to bid on them? And that's why I'm asking the question.
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't you give those names to me and we'll call them and ask them if they want to bid on something. We can run it by them.
Well, are we gonna make it that, if it's a non-emergency thing, we should get 2 bids?
Do you want us to wait a month to meet, to run the bids by, or what? I mean, how much is an emergency?
Well,
When we run the smoke through the pipes down there and there's smoke coming up all over and the whole thing needs to be replaced, how much of an emergency is that? It's not tonight, we don't have to do it tonight.
we should set a dollar figure on, if it's $2,500 or more, we should have another estimate. I mean, I don't know. Guys are talking to me, and I'm asking you.
Okay, what I'm asking you is if somebody wants to be in on a bid,
Right.
submit those names in here, let's get them in here and talk about them.
But don't you think you knew about these meeting before we said, hey, we got these projects we're looking at?
I can't answer that, Larry. I don't know what you're talking,
I'm just
if they are interested.
Whoa, one at a time, because I can't even keep track of who's saying.
I'm just asking if we can set a standard here, $2,500 or more, we need a second estimate.
I believe that there is something in the ordinance as far as what needs to be bid and we can look that up. But if it's going to be bid, if I remember the ordinance correctly, then it has to be advertised. So, you know, if you want to go over and above what's already in the ordinance, then you need to put your ideas together, submit those somehow. We can talk about how far we want to go. The answer to your question is yes. If you want to submit those in for discussion, that'd be fine.
I have another question on here. Wheelhouse PDR, that's Joe Wheelhouse. What's that $446.62 for?
Because the front end of the cruiser was damaged. The shield on the fender, is the ticket in there?
Did he hit a deer?
Pardon?
Did he hit a deer?
No, he hit a raccoon.
Oh, he hit a raccoon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it knocked it all loose underneath there, and then when he turned it, rolled it up around the wheel.
Sure.
So that was a pretty good price, actually, for
Yeah.
what could have been.
You know, let me just interject here. Let's go back to the Barnes thing about the bidding on the deal. You know, this is one of those examples where you're making this transition of what the mayor could have done under the old system and what the new system is going to be now. And so that's clearly something that the council can, you know, decide as to whether or not there needs to be bids. And if it's bids, if you're gonna, whatever that figure might be, then it'd have to go with whatever the ordinance say here. But I mean, I think this is another good example of where you're making that transition, because under the old system, the mayor had all the authority to say, oh, this is what we're going to do on that. And it has good things and it has bad things when you do it that way. But certainly, this is an example where the council can then say, well, this is how we're going to do it. And the downside of it, it may not get done as quickly as you would have otherwise had it. But the opposite side of it, the good side of it is the flip of the coin is, well, maybe it'd be less money too. So that's kind of one of those judgment calls that you're going to have to make as a council, you know, how you want to do that. But it's not unusual to have a situation where you set a certain amount of money, because you don't want to be having, you know, a meeting a month later to find out something would have been done quickly and cheaply at that point. But that's certainly something, Councilman Pites, that I think is open for the board to do that. I think under your old system, you know, your city administrator or the mayor who took over those jobs had the authority to do that. And I guess that's why one of the reasons that you wanted to change that system. And I don't know, I can't tell you exactly what, you know, a good figure is. That's really your judgment call.
Is there anything in that,
You know,
We'll have to.
past councilman or past mayors put in there for a number?
It's in the code at one time, I think, but I can't quote it.
I'll look and see what I can find here.
Okay.
I have a comment on that. When
Heck,
Wait a minute, did you go?
are you done?
Well, no, she got a call on you.
I need,
Well, your neighbor's not looking.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, Nikki?
I had to go with what you just said. When the water meter was put in at our Horse Acres down here, I was approached by Alex Gunther asking me why he didn't do it, because he is my plumber, and if it was bidded out. And I'm like, no, I just know that he said Tim Arns was there. And so he asked me why wasn't the job bidded out for that. And I'm like, the city just put it in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so he is a local guy, so he was asking me too why.
Well, in part, in answer.
Stop. One at a time.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, he just came and asked me too why the job wasn't bidded out like it should be, he said.
Well,
So that kind of made us look bad a little bit because he's our regular plumber too, so.
sure, but that's part of this transition of what your city administrator had authority to do before and where you're at now. And so that's, you know, that's a decision you guys need to talk about and figure out. Because otherwise, I mean, you know, the city administrator could say this person's going to do it, that person's going to do it. Now with this change, you know, that's what you guys have got to set the rules and regulations as to how you want to do that.
Go ahead, that's fine.
I guess that my thought process is, I think bidding out is a great idea, but when it comes to an emergency, a broken pipe or something like that, I think Tim's always been very reliable and very quick to get here. So when it comes to, I know every situation is gonna be a little different, but in a case like that's been that way for a long time, we probably could have researched that maybe a little more. But when it comes to broken pipes and things like that, the quicker the better, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
I would like to say that I have depended on the judgment of our city workers who work with these guys all the time. And sometimes they get Tim and sometimes they get Alex, and a lot of that is dependent upon their schedule and depending upon what they do for that day. If our policy is pretty much that if our guys can do it, they do it. It's cheaper for us to do it than anybody paying anybody. So if they work with them, that's a big part of it. They kind of got a pattern down for putting these meters in. Yes?
Just a comment, going back to Nikki's point, do the city employees ask if there is a plumber that is working with the homeowner? In the case of Nikki, where they were working with Alex, is it ever asked that question if they have a plumber that they use on a regular basis? Because maybe they would already know the property and then instead of bringing in somebody else. Just a comment.
Thank you. Basically, putting the meter in is the city's responsibility. So it's not, if that means anything.
It does,
And
but then you're turning it over to, as soon as the meter is installed, and your city, or the plumber that's hired by the homeowner is taking over from that. You know, is it possible?
What do you mean
to have-
taking?
Well, like, okay, so once you install the meter, but yet Alex is doing additional plumbing after that meter is installed, does it make sense that Alex is given the opportunity to finish that part of the job? I don't know if that's fair or not, and that's the city's call, but, you know, I guess for my loan, I hired a plumber and I'm comfortable with them being in my home. I don't know that I want somebody else coming in and doing stuff.
That wasn't the situation.
Well, and I understand. I'm just saying from
Yeah.
my perspective.
Yep. Thank you. Anything else?
Well, I think you need to resolve how you want it
I was gonna talk to the council here.
Do we have
Will you guys have considered, you know, and I know a sudden burst of water, I was out pushing snow and the water breaks, we need to take care of it. But if it's been planned and nobody has to, you know, it ain't an emergency right now, nobody's water's in danger or anything else like that, is there a dollar number that you guys are thinking that we need to, we all got telephones, we can all email everybody, and we can say, hey, you know, it's not an emergency, you can get it done within a 30-day period, get us an estimate what it would cost. We're not talking that we gotta do it right now. We're talking about, I know there's some projects in town here that have been sitting for a month or longer, and all of a sudden, it was done and nobody got to even know about it. I think as a council, if there's a project, let's say there's I'll just pick something off, just a sewer line that has to be put in, it's not essential, it's not bothering anybody. I think the council needs to know what they're planning on doing, or who's planning on doing it, I don't know. We need to know before this all takes place and come to the meeting, we see a bill for X amount of thousands of dollars. That's my views. I think the council needs to be aware of it. We got plenty of time, there's no emergency. We have 2 estimates. It don't take long to write estimates, because I do it all the time for people. And they say they need it in 5 days, I get it done, the estimate. What do you guys think about that?
I don't think it needs to be a dollar amount. I think any job that's not emergency should be bidded out.
A what?
Any job that's not an emergency should be bidded out, in my opinion. Doesn't matter what the dollar amount. You can't do a service call anymore for $500. I mean, there isn't a job out there that's
There's a
less than
plumber,
a couple
and
thousand
there's,
dollars.
in my business, I've done thousands of these jobs, and I have to give you kind of a ballpark figure.
Sure.
And I think that would be the most fairest thing, so we kind of know, you know, what we're doing with our money a little bit.
I just think if it's
If it's a
not an
non-emergency.
emergency, get a bid.
So if it's not a safety or security thing, we're gonna have a
Get a
bid, regardless if it's $50 or $5,000. If it doesn't involve safety or security of our community, then we're gonna have a bid, multiple bids.
Right. 2 is all we need.
Then you need, if I may interject, if you're gonna do it fairly, you need to put it in the paper.
That's
You
fine.
need to advertise your
I think that's fair.
advertisements. You know, we can do, you want local advertisements only? Because if you start branching out, then you're gonna be paying a lot of money. So, I mean, you know, you may save
Yeah.
money on the bid, but you may pay out money on the advertising.
Locally should be enough.
We have a plumber in town here, and if Tim Arns wants to bid it that way, that's fine, but we need another bid. I can't see us because he gives us this amount. We have no idea. When you build a house or you do something on your place or your car, always want to know kind of what it is before you start. That's where I'm getting at this.
I think locally would be fine. That would cover our bases.
Isla, what do you think about this?
I'm trying to decide what's an emergency and what isn't an emergency.
What was?
I'm trying to decide what the difference is between an emergency and not an emergency.
Well, if for some reason you have a water line right in front of your house that breaks and water's gushing all over, that's an emergency. But if they're gonna just extend a sewer line or you know, something to replace a meter, one of those shut-off valves in front of your house because they think it's bad. That's not an emergency. Emergency is when you got rushing water and it's, you know, we're losing money that way and it could go in your basement, and that's an emergency. Something that's a non-emergency that can wait for a month. It could wait, you know, it ain't have to be done right this instant.
I have a problem with waiting for a month on a water line though.
Well, that's a private thing. That's not a city thing. A water line is a homeowner from the meter to your house. If the
So
meter,
then I contact a plumber to get it done under a month?
it's not, the city has nothing to do with that. You can get whoever you want.
Okay,
If it's from the meter to your house, if it's from the shut-off,
That was my question.
that's all, that's your business. If it's broke towards the street, if the shut-off is broken towards the street and the main broken, Crofton and city water, that's emergency for us. Okay?
I have to say one thing, so it is from the curb stop in.
From the curb stop to the
Yes,
homeowner.
But we own the meters.
Well,
So
I'm
we
sorry, it's
replace
the meters,
it.
but
So then you've got another situation. So
Well, if it
that's
breaks-
inside the homes, and it does affect, if there's water running out there and we're paying Cedar Knox for water and it's not going through their meter, that's out of the city's pocket.
from the curb stop,
But that's an emergency.
That's right.
right. But it's only from the curb stop.
And let me say one other thing, just to kind of clarify here. Most of that work, as far as the putting the pipes together and all of that stuff, our guys do. They're certified in water and sewer care of the equipment. What usually happens, and they can correct me at some point, I guess, but the way I understand this, a good share of the time, we get Alex to come out and put a camera in those lines. We had him right over there. We had both of them on that one job. We get him to come out and clean out sewer lines. That's, you know, Tim has a backhoe to get us into those pipes where the guys can fix them. It's not that he's fixing them, you know, it's that he's doing the dirt work to get us in there, so we're not on a shovel.
But
So there's two different things going on here.
But the sewer line is the homeowners to the main sewer. That is the homeowner all the way to.
We're just
giving-
talking about what the city has to fix.
Yes, just the city fix.
So we're not interfering with what the homeowner does anyway.
No.
So we just,
I suggest that we table this and find the ordinance that already deals with it. Deal with how we want to might deal with that, change it and/or put a price or whatever, however you want to limit it. It's hard to tell the difference between, an emergency and a non-emergency, but to get estimates for $50 is, then pay $50 advertising is, we need to consider price somewhere.
But there's another thing. If you got, let's just use Alex and Tim. And that sewer line that went by Leon's back in that vacant lot back there, that was not an emergency, I thought. But if you ask Alex and he looks at it, says, I'm too busy, then you get a bid from Tim. You also get a bid from everybody. And Alex said he's too busy. At least he was asked, and he got to look at it. And one of the things that other people are upset about, they don't even get asked to come and look at the job. That's what they're upset about.
Okay, point taken. Let's move on.
So is there anything I'm supposed to be doing on this? I don't want to not be doing something.
I'll try to
I
find
don't want
it.
to take bids on it.
we'll find
Yeah,
out.
let's find the
Ordinance, how much
ordinance.
money they had for,
Okay.
for bidding, non-emergency jobs.
Well, I will say, I think that, you're not going to have these kind of numbers anymore because you're going to have something that you have to, somebody bring something to you. I think that's where, Mr. Evans's idea of having layouts on that person is going to know ahead of time what kind of projects you have down the road and how you can deal with that, as well as, who the potential people would be to be on that list. And maybe you could even have on your website a place where you're noticing projects or something as a means of giving a notice out to the people in the surrounding area.
This doesn't need to be a one-to-one kind of deal. I mean, if Larry is that person, he contacts the 3 people that we normally do business with. They all gave him a written estimate or a verbal commitment or whatever, email him, price quotes. He informs the other council members, this is where we're at and what his recommendation is, and then we're done. We can do this, right?
The only thing you have to be careful of is you can't be having, a big group meeting, because then you got open meeting laws, or that kind of thing. So that's the only thing we'd have to be concerned about that, but it isn't a problem of you find something and you contacting him individually and vice versa.
Well, what's happening, Mike, is people are jumping me about how come they're putting this in, or how come I don't know nothing about it. I'm left in the dark. I have no idea. No council should know what's going on.
Sure, but part of that reason for that is the fact that you went from a city administrator type of deal
To the new one,
to the
yes.
new one. So,
Yes.
that's part of the whole transition where, you're spreading out the jobs, responsibility, the notice amongst everybody, amongst a bigger group. And so I think some of those frustrations that you've had in the past, some of that's going to start, kind
Oh, that's
of
fine.
going away, I think.
And I think we did model that in some sense. We had a freezer that went down at the pool, which is a crisis. You gotta have frozen treats for the kids.
Sure.
So the mayor and I talked, and we talked with Nikki, and then I found out the prices and contacted council members and got a okay on the email that it's okay to do it. And then the mayor handed me the credit card and I went and bought it, and we're done with it. So it worked out really well, I believe.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So I'll check and see
Just
what we've had in
one
the
thing
past.
we don't want to forget is our maintenance people who have done this and who have a great deal of knowledge, and we do not want to step over top of them and not have their input. And when it comes down to working with the water and the sewer, they are state licensed, and we need that in dealing with a lot of things.
Well, Mr. Price, what would be, so from an emergency standpoint, other than the refrigerator at the pool, we got what, water, sewer, and what else would we be looking at from an emergency?
That's the city's
Right.
account for water and sewer. And if it's broke on the street side, the city's, that's an emergency. if it's broke on my side of my property and breaks, that's my responsibility as a homeowner. That's not the city's problem. They have to turn the water off. You could call and say, I need my water turned off. That's a must, because the water's just gonna keep gushing until we get it turned off. But for braiding water pipes and a sewer, if I put a new sewer in my house, it's my responsibility that the plumber I get hooks up to the city sewer, you know, and the city workers show the guys where the manholes are and where this is and where that is. That's what they're supposed to be doing, showing the plumber. And the plumber takes care of it, and I pay the plumber to put my sewer line, which I did already. So I know that for a fact, because I'm in construction.
Yeah. Well, I was just trying to think of what other potential emergencies there can be. It would just be your water and your sewer, right?
Yeah, we have nothing.
Everything else should not
Telephone
be-
or cable or nothing like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to pay the claims.
With the amendment? Because you got one on here twice, right?
Yeah, there's that's on there twice.
That one for
The
TIF
TIF
payment is on
Yeah, the
the
payment's on there twice.
top and the bottom, see that?
Yep.
Right? For 2020,
It's
it's on there twice.
This one, okay. That should be bigger.
Oh, yeah.
You see it?
I see it on the top and on the bottom, right?
Yeah, so it's just one, so it's approval.
Approval would take out that one TIF payment
Yes.
of $2,028.90. I'll make that motion.
I don't see tip twice. Oh, yes, it is. Okay, yep.
I was just alluding to, there isn't a situation where there would be two in a month. It's just an error.
Not unless one is delayed for some reason, you know, sometimes for one reason or another. And it might not be our fault, but it clearly might, yeah, but we'll only get two a year in their spread. Okay. Okay,
Like Larry made the motion.
And I made a motion to pay the
Yes.
claims except for the TIF payment, take one of those out for $2,028.90. It's in there twice.
I'll second that amended approval.
okay, so Larry made the motion and Bob second to pay the bills with the duplicate left out. So James,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Isla,
Yes.
and Larry.
Yeah.
I want to draw just very quickly with the financials that are in your packet. The lost and found, or the profit and loss on the lost and found funds on the lost funds. This is only May. It comes up again over there where you have all your funds together. That shows you the trying to get less pages of this, but there is a year-to-date in one of the later reports. But I thought it was interesting and for you to see that if we think that COVID has not affected us, look at the income for sales tax for the month of May. And that is oftentimes anywhere from 10 to 18,000 a month. So it definitely has hurt. And when the sales aren't happening here, we're losing money out of our infrastructure fund, out of our swimming pool fund, and out of our economic development, because that's what this funds. The proprietary funds, this is what we make money on. And this is water, sewer, and sanitation. Remember that we paid some of the rehabbing of the sewer system out of these funds. We need to look at them again. We will be in that process when I will be bringing in to you some proposals for raising rates probably all the way across the board. Miller and Associates out of Kearney are looking at how much we might have to raise sewer rates in order to help pay for that. We look at the water rates at a certain time of the year. They've already been raised once. We're still clearing, but we're close. Miller and Associates also are looking for grant money to help with the sewer. So you'll see those things come into these financials in a separate account as we pick them up. In the restricted funds, we have the streets, and by trying to squeeze these together and get them on less pages, we kind of knocked the numbers or the names off. And when I renamed these, I kind of used those long numbers that matched it up with the classes so that they would get in the right columns. So we'll work at getting those renamed. So we have streets, and I want you to just want to draw attention to this. I still want to do a financial meeting later, but I want you to think about these as you look at them. The restricted revenue, we cannot use it for anything except what it is intended. So you have the street income. You have the pool income, or pool money that comes from anything that's in those restricted funds, like the funds that are raised specifically for that pool. The economic development or the community development is not restricted like the sales tax, but when we put it in there, it's designated to be used for economic development. The TIF, of course, comes in and out. You're not going to find a balance in there very much of the time. It comes in, it's an agreed to amount, and it's paid out. The CBDG funds are still there. So your total is there, and then over at the end you have the Sharon Street funds. That's the money that comes in from the assessments paid by the taxpayers, by the homeowners out there. The final page of that restricted revenue shows you the expenses against those funds and then your totals. The general funds, these are the funds that are financed by the property taxes that you and all pay, that the residents of the city pay, as well as some interstate, interlocal funds which comes from the state. So in this general fund section is the operating, and the operating, whatever's in operating goes out to all of these others, basically. So the police fund, the baseball, softball, pool operating. This is not the building, this is the operating. That one that says camping, I added that camping so it would always catch our eye because that's kind of the grounds upkeep in the bathrooms, etc. Like our little campground over here. The auditorium, and that all comes under recreation. You'll see a total for that and then a total of that fund. You'll follow that all the way through. The next through pages are expenses against those. And then the next page is a balance sheet. Shows you our assets and our liabilities. And the assets always equal the liability and equity. And this is this is what most of you will be used to, but this is not allowed in government funding, in government reporting. Government reporting has cash only and has a net position, but these are helpful to know where everything is. So then the next page is your profit and loss. All funds, last month and fiscal year to date, and I know a lot of you like this. So there's May, and then there's your year to date. So it starts at October 1st and goes through May 21st. So there's several pages of that, and that is your financial statements. And anytime that anybody has questions on those, I'll be glad to try to answer them for you.
I got a question.
Okay.
Why we got $1,592.83 in overtime?
In what?
It's overtime wages.
Because we have overtime wages. We can discuss that at some time. I know that there has been some talk about whether we should be paying overtime or not, but if we're not going to pay overtime, then we need to find somebody else to work, and we need to raise the wage.
What's wrong with comp time?
What is comp time, Larry?
I worked at the prison.
I know that. Tell me what comp time is.
Wait. One at a time.
Comp time is where you work, they don't have money to pay overtime, you keep your hours that you pay comp time, you take it off at a later date, the hours that you work. No comp money, you just get an extra day off, that's what happens.
Okay.
We had $1,200 and some dollars last month, we got $1,592. If we have to go in executive session, I'd like to know where this overtime is, who's getting it, what department's getting it. That's my question.
Well, I can answer that easily.
Okay?
We don't get it in the office. So it's maintenance and/or police, and the police officer tries very hard not to get anything, but occasionally he's got a full week and then he gets called out, and there's nothing you can do about that. And you can't take a day off next week to take care of that because we wouldn't have anybody to cover the streets. The only way, in my opinion, and this is, is that you can look at comp time is if you have enough workers that you can fill in for those guys when they need to take their days off. So if we are pushing snow, then we need to have another person that can come in and work those hours so that they don't get overtime. And just from my point of view here, and it may not be worth a dime, but that's what I get the big bucks for, is that if we are going to cut wages, which we would effectively do, then we need to raise wages because they don't get paid as much as our first-year school teachers. And I would challenge anybody to come in and do the work that they do. So a little bit of overtime is a little bit of money in their pocket that is not killing us.
Well, who covers for the policeman when he got his days off? I've been driving around and I haven't seen when he has his days off and he has his days off. I have no problem with that. But I don't see a car move when he's got his days off.
Well, we can't do anything about not having another police officer, Larry, unless you can find us one. You go out and scrounge around and find us one.
Well, I think we need to go to an executive session and talk about this. I really do. I'm watching this and I see it every month. And you say we're pushing snow. I realize that. There's summer times that you can give them days off. Not a problem.
No, because in the summertime we have something else to do. The guys average about 5 hours a week overtime. That's a plain simple fact. So if you don't want that, then you're going to have to come up with a plan to get the work covered. Yes, Nikki.
Are you guys required to be here tonight?
Say to me, what?
Are the city guys required to be here tonight?
Nope,
They're not?
they're not being paid.
They're just here on their own time?
Yes.
That's nice.
Okay.
I hate to bring up stuff in the past, but I don't remember back, they never got overtime, they had days off if they had some extra hours that they were going to pay for. Now,
I'm not privy to that, so I don't know. If you want,
I just think that we need to sit down executive as a board, and we need to sit there and figure out a plan.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
It might be helpful to find out, if you went back a year, in what areas that you're talking about where they overtime was incurred, then you're gonna be able to better,
Well, that would be best.
have a chance to analyze where you're at and what you may need or may not need. You may also determine, well, yeah, I can see where that occurred because we had a big storm, we had this or that.
I understand
That
that.
type of stuff. And then you'd be able to determine which direction you as a council would like to go if you knew month by month for about a year back what you'd be looking at.
I think we need to probably go in executive council and talk about these myself.
Well, you'd only go into executive session if you're gonna deal, ask specific names and
So I
stuff.
realize that.
But would you want to do that after you got the information, or are you talking about doing that now?
After I get the information, I'd probably like to do that.
Would you, what do you want for information? Exactly where the overtime is created? What exactly do you want?
Which departments are getting it?
I told you, the maintenance. There's 2 guys in maintenance.
You told me also the policeman.
Okay, 2 guys in maintenance and occasionally the police officer. I explained to the police officer, he tries to keep it at 40, but sometimes he gets called out. And we want our town covered, don't we? And we don't have a second one. And occasionally, he can take a day off and there's nobody on duty, as you pointed out. And occasionally, we get somebody to come in part-time.
Well, I see the county sheriff drive through and they sit on the west end of town sometimes, and that's fine. But I don't.
But we don't pay him.
Did I say that?
No, I'm just saying that so we don't control that.
Well, if they know he's got days off, they do it out of courtesy, I think.
No, they don't. They just happen to be by probably. They've never asked us when his day's off or anything to coordinate anything, unless he's coordinating with them, which I don't know. But county can go anywhere they want to. The state patrol sets out there too.
I know that.
So, that's just part of their drill, I think, to be.
Well, it's not a big deal to get him the numbers for
No.
Yeah, so let's stick in the numbers and then that way you can analyze them, and then if you still want to go into executive session, you certainly can do
That'd
that.
probably be the best way to do it.
Okay. Moving on, there is a well permit that was applied for by Kelly Marshall that has been approved by the planning and zoning, but they really can't approve it totally. That needs to be approved by the city council. James, did you have a question?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Everything is in order, right, Mike? Or-
Yeah, I think it's
And-
legally allowed. The choice of the council is whether
Yeah.
they want to allow it.
The well permits basically are controlled by the state, so that kind of takes it. When they get their well digger, they put a number on it and so forth, and there's certain state regulations that have to be followed. So that's kind of takes care of what we care about, unless it's in an inconvenient place or,
Unless the council has a reason.
yeah, a reason.
Deny it, they're privileged to deny it if they want.
Like maybe we want to make more money on water or something, so we don't want them to have a well or something. I don't know. I'm just being facetious, of course. But we just approved one for the school. Was there another one, Mike?
There may be others forthcoming. I don't think this is something that we want to have be a rash necessarily, but on occasion I think there are reasons to have a private well.
Okay.
And I know of another individual who had asked about private wells.
Okay. So I'm just asking if you have anything for or against it, Mike, that you want to.
Well, if you look at that permit, there are certain statements on there regarding the city code. And that permit tells you where to go to find the city code information. If you look at that permit, And that's your guide. That's the only guide I have.
Okay. Yeah, and it's not very much. Okay.
That puts the decision in the hands of the city council, basically. And the well can't be within 1,000 feet of a functioning well for the city. But functioning city well is probably, how far that way? 4 or 5 miles south. Yeah. So,
Does anybody have
within the
any,
city, it's not a problem.
excuse me, does anybody have any concerns?
I don't.
Well, then we could ask for a motion to approve.
I'll motion to approve.
By James, motion to approve. Larry, second. Did you say second, Larry? Did you say second?
Yes.
Yeah, Larry seconds it. Bob?
Yes.
Isla?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
And Larry.
Yes.
Okay, so then next is the report on street work. And the street work so far, they've done two sections of stuff. You kind of indicated that they should go ahead and use up the material. I guess that that's something that if you want a liaison of somebody to work with, what we need to do and want to do with that, that is something that is of the essence. The longer that that coating is not on there, the more the water gets down underneath, the more it rots away the underground and blah, 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 and the streets break away and so forth. We have invested some money in equipment. We need more, or we need a plan. So,
I did,
James, you want to work on it?
I did some research, and we talked last time about Knife River. They got back to me. I think Bob got the letter, I forwarded it to him, and I think James got it. Did you get it, Isla? This from Knife River?
Is it the
No.
one from Fordyce?
Same.
Well, this here is, I asked him what it would take approximately to do a city block in Crofton. And he wrote back roughly 24 feet wide by 300 feet long. That would put a one block approximately that wide and that long. It would take $30,000 to take 4 inches down and continue the whole road with 4 inches of hot asphalt. They would roll it, pack it. You know, if we don't have a curb, and I went to Fordyce to look when Fordyce was doing it, and they blended it into the ground so it's not a big hump for people. They would blend it back down in the ground, and people that had curbs, they would cut along the curb that's existing there, and it would be a nice smooth finish there. So he knows that we have to get estimates for a project like this. One city block approximately would take $30,000. Now, we also talked about the state gives us $75,000. Is that correct?
Not
For
exactly.
streets?
Not exactly.
Well, approximately, I said. I don't know exactly the number because I don't have them in front of me. I think you guys in 25,000, I think we have to come up ourselves to get this money from the state. Am I wrong or right?
No, the state gives us money based upon our roads and the number of road lengths and people.
So I'm asking the council,
It's more than that.
it's
But
what?
anyway,
The money is what more, where?
pretty close to 100,000, I believe.
That we get from the state?
Let me look at it, see if I can. Maybe not, maybe that's with everything, because we get everything that goes through motor vehicles too. It's hard to remember exact figures, you know. Okay, so say 9,000, it's about 9,000 a month. So say 8,000 a month is 90.
Ain't we supposed to come up with some money though too to get that money? Is that how it works?
We just have to match it and spend it.
And did we, I know we had talked, did we contact him to see if that was a guarantee?
Say it again.
We talked in our last meeting to contact him to see if that's guaranteed every year.
I know it isn't a guarantee. They give it to us each year what the estimates are. And it's based on lanes and population. So it can't be guaranteed amounts because it could vary. In other words, if our population jumped into more figures, then it goes up. But let me point out a fallacy in your thinking here, guys, because James, I remember you saying if you would borrow the money
Right.
and then make those payments out of that, whatever.
Right.
Our streets have a lot more expenses than just building that road. We pay for our street lights out of the street fund. We remove the snow out of the street fund.
So how
There's a
much,
lot of other stuff that, you know, and of course the wages that go towards that
Right.
has to be taken out of there.
Right, and I think that's a good point, but I think that's a number that we could, if we added everything, we could come up with that cost.
Well, I definitely suggest that if you want to really look into this, that you need, my experience is that what I saw with the Ninth River and what I saw with these suggested, well, it could, but right at the bottom of it, it said, this does not include any dirt work underneath. This does not include any this does not. So look at what it does not include before you look at your total package. They've charged just a setup fee, an engineering fee. None of that's in there. Whatever that costs, you can count on 10% for an engineering fee. And they're not going to just come in and start throwing, they're going to engineer it, they're going to survey, they're going to do it. Right?
He's
Or
had-
hope, or we won't want it.
he said he had a minimum if he'd done 3 city blocks. He could waive that setup fee so they'd be 3 city blocks. There's a couple streets that we know about that's gonna have to have some dirt work done. We know that. And I asked him about it. He said he would take it down and we have a patrol that we can do the grading ourselves. And then they would come in and lay it down. But I think if we go with this plan, that the city could see us, I don't care whose blocks get first, but somebody has to get started. We got to do this and have a complete block done, finished, so we don't have to go back and repatch and repatch and repatch. And there's nothing wrong with repatching until we need to get, I looked at 4.
That's why we bought the Miller. You know,
I don't
to
know
be
how
able to
much-
do an extended.
Whoa. One at a time.
Sorry.
I don't have the numbers, how much labor, we didn't have much snow this last year, so the labor on the snow removal should have never been too high. The lights, I don't know what that number is either. I would like to see the numbers that are expensed on the streets in Crofton to see what we have left.
I think that's a good question.
Well, you need to get a bunch of numbers here.
We need to get numbers together and sit down as a council and say, hey, this is how much we got left. If we have to take it out to bids, we could give 2 people a chance at doing what they're doing and specify what we're gonna do. If we have to work through an engineer, so be it.
Well, if you have bids, you're also going to have those people on the other side telling you what is it in the other person's bid.
Well, this guy didn't give me no specifics. He just
No,
gave
and I'm
me-
not being critical of him. I'm just saying that's one of the
Well, I
advantages
know
of
that.
getting the bids.
But at least I think the city of people in Crofton can see that the streets are heading in the right direction to get them. Maybe last 10 years, I don't know. They just put 4 ices in. Nobody knows how long they're gonna last until I'm probably older and gray. But at least the people in Crofton can see the streets getting accomplished, and then next year, pick out another 2 or 3 blocks, whatever we can afford. And that way, I think we can move ahead with this project.
Go back to what you said, that they said it would cost for what, one block, 30,000?
If it's, he said if it's 24 feet wide, 350 feet long. Now, some streets in Crofton ain't as wide as the other ones. So that might vary in a lot of things, how wide the street is. I know there's some streets that are narrower and some are wider. If it's a concrete underneath that asphalt, ain't gonna be done. And I figured as in front of the bank, this main street going all the way down to where, past Brian Little houses, and from Brett Becker's or that intersection all the way over to, it used to be Larry Cook's building. That's just cement underneath our asphalt, and they won't touch that.
Yeah, that's all.
So the rest of the streets, some are wider. That Omaha Street ain't as wide as you get up in town over here in different places. And I know that some of the streets are a lot wider because they got curbs. Some just didn't have a curb. They just pushed it out as far as they could, and that road just keeps getting wider and wider.
So what do you need, what information do you need?
I need to know how much we pay on labor for the lights. You said the lights come out of the streets. You said labor for the snow removal comes out of the streets. What else comes out?
Well, if you look at your street fund there that I pointed to in your restricted revenue fund, it has the gross profit is 15,000 for this 1 month, okay?
What's that? The lights?
15,000 is the gross profit. That's the $8,000 from the state plus what we take in from the Knox County distribution of licensing and so forth and so on. So when you license your car, we get money. Then the expenses are right there. There's shop supplies and that kind of thing, and then there's the electric expense is $1,100. So if you follow that all the way through, you got a total expense of 34, so you're coming out with a net income in that particular month of about 11 grand.
I would like to see those numbers on a sheet.
It's on your, it's in your finance.
But that would be, if you did the math, it'd be $144,000. If it's average is $12,000 a month.
Profit.
Yeah.
But this is 1 month.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We need to see all 12
Exactly.
months.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. We need to see a spread of all 12 months, right?
And we can't really get a logical in the wintertime because this last winter, we didn't have a lot of snow. And we can't judge that.
But we could do it over a 3-year period though too,
Well, right.
or a 5-year period. But
We can adjust some months in there to
Right.
make up for some of those.
right.
But I think as a board, we need
So
to sit down.
so what you're talking about, James, we pay our street superintendent to lay out a 5-year plan. And he picks out the streets. It's been the same for as long as I've been on the council. We met with him last year to try to get 2 of the intersections at least started to work on. Kind of ran into, no, don't want to do that. So I'm trying to see if you can. But I can, yes, I can go back 5 years if you want.
Could you please?
Yeah.
Would you please?
And so what exact information?
How
do you
many
want,
years do you want?
Just go 3 years, Cheryl. Let's just be 3 years.
So what exactly, so we know exactly.
Yeah, we need to know what our profit is and our gross expense.
Okay.
For that 3-year period per month over a 12-month period.
Okay, so then you've already got the information from Knife.
Just a preliminary one, nothing definite in stone because he knows we're gonna have to send out for estimate bids. And
Who else is gonna bid?
well, I have to find somebody. I don't know who else does it around here.
Yeah.
I know Knife River does a lot around here, but I'd look around and see who could give us and sit down with the council and tell us what they're gonna do, and we'll have specifications, take out 4, put back 4 in. And the streets that have the big crown, which everybody knows where they're at, take it down to dirt and level this thing down where it's supposed to be, and then put the 4 inches on top.
Do you know whether or not that road guy in Nebraska, does he do what you're talking about? There's a place over there, maybe you know.
The guy in top coat would be options in Yankton.
Yeah, I
The
think
guy
there
in
was a
top coat
couple.
out of Yankton would be other options besides Vancouver.
I mean, I'm sure I can find.
Yeah.
But
Well, I just thought if you do, because then you're gonna get a better idea of what you need. Sure.
But legally, do we have to, if we're not spending millions of dollars, if we're gonna do maybe 3, possibly 4 blocks, do we need to get an engineer? Or can we work through I mean, I don't know what it says or how it says it, but we need to.
I don't know, but I'll find out for you.
All right.
Then how long has that 33-110 streets, that profit and loss, that specific budget designation been there for multiple years? Or is it
Say that
something fairly
again.
new? 33-110, which is the code number for streets for profit and loss from restricted. Has that been around for a while, that specific coding, or is it something relatively new?
That's just a number on an account.
Okay, but that account has existed for a while, so this will be fairly easy for you to look up, because you can look back at that.
Oh, yeah, they're all, yeah. Those, I hope, connected to them even before, you know, to the old accounts too.
So it should make it relatively simple to pull some. All right, thank you.
Good job.
That's it.
I would suggest you pull the street superintendent end of it. But
What was that?
I would suggest that you pull the street superintendent end too, and I don't know why, I just think that he is a surveyor and he's got knowledge of you know, how a lot of this works.
Who is that?
When we put that Steve Parr with JEO, when we first started doing this way back when I first came into office, there is a report due, it'll be coming up before very long, about where that street money is spent and how much is spent. And, you know, I told you about that, it has to be spent along with what we gather up. And I think that's where you, Larry, you said we have to put some in order for us to get it. That's part of where that idea came from. At the end of the year, you have to report what you got, what we got locally. We have to match it by 25%, and that has to be spent within the year, or they drop it back. I don't know. We've always shown that we spend it. Doesn't mean that the fund is depleted, but we spend that much. Sometimes it has come out of an operating fund rather than out of the street fund for one reason or another back when. I was just checking some of that the other day, and although our figures will look short now or with less money in there because we're supposed to spend it. And the auditors keep saying, spend your restricted money first. Operating money we can spend anywhere, but if we spend it on streets, we can't spend street money anywhere. So we have to spend that street money first. Really? So in that process, when we had to make all those reports, I didn't know where to go, so I called Steve and he said, I can find out what you got. He's the one that called the state and said, here's the state allocations, here's what you got out of the county, because they weren't separated in the books properly. So he gave me the figure. That's what we got, that's what we had to spend. That's what we based our accounts on, was based on what we had to spread them out. So then I set up the accounts to match what we had to do.
How often does he make reports?
They have changed that to where I make the reports, but I always run them through him. But it's once a year.
Okay, that might be a good thing to get.
That's why I said it, but he knows the legalities, like you were talking about. Do you have to have an engineer? Do you have to do this? He would know those questions.
Well, I was over at Fordyce and I talked to a few people and the engineer, and he said the reason they had to have an engineer because they put everything, some of this money that they're spending on the taxpayers, than on their taxes. And that's why they had to use an engineer to do it. But he said if you don't have to put it on the taxpayers, then you're not required to get an engineer. Now, this is what Fordyce told me.
Right, but Larry, how else are we going to pay for it? It is on the taxpayers. Yes.
I'm just
My
reporting.
suggestion is, since you're talking about this and exactly what Larry said, Fortis had done this job down there, which was basically $500,000. They got a grant for $400,000, which we probably can't get because they got lower income people. They got to come up with $100,000 in the next 10 to 12 years. My feeling is, go down and talk to them people to see, they got one heck of a job down there. I mean, it improved that town 500% what they got done down there. And they got one heck of a lot of work done for their $500,000. In front of that Catholic church down there, they got the parking lot on the east side, the west side, all done. How many streets in Fordyce they got done? And I think you should go down there and talk to them and see what they had to do, what was mandatory. They're next door. Go to them and just see what they have to say.
Okay.
And then go from there.
Thank you.
Does that money have to be spent in a year, 6 months? You said you have to spend that money to get there. Is it a year that they get to spend, this money?
It's
On
a year,
streets?
it goes on a fiscal year, yes. But always remember that there's always an if. So a lot of the capital expenditures, if you set aside, there's one called a sinking fund, there's another one that's called a plan for capital expenditure, there's another. So we can set those aside. Like Sharon Street's restricted, but we put that $50,000 bond because it's set aside for that purpose. See what I'm saying?
Well-
So we could probably, I don't know, I'd have to run it through the budget process and see where it could be set aside. But we can set aside certain amounts of money for future projects. Good?
That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
Does the balance as of sheet there, is that from September through the end of May, or is that from January to end of May? What does that reflect?
They're always run from the fiscal year,
Which would be
October 1st.
October. So from October 1st to May 30th.
Up to date, right.
Is the balance of that street restricted fund 3010 is $61,000 as of?
Is that what it said? Yeah.
That's what this,
Yeah,
so
okay.
that's, over a 10-minute period, that's, average of $10,000.
Yeah. If it was all spent.
Right, yeah.
And there's always that fund balance.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I got one more question. I got this financial on my computer and my phone. And most of the financials were upside down on my printouts. Kind of hard to read upside down. You can't turn my computer like this. And I'm just asking,
So it was a mistake,
and I
right?
probably know it was a mistake, and I'm not, I just hope I can read upside down.
It turns over on the way, Larry.
Well, it's like this, and I'm trying to read upside down, and it don't work.
Turn your computer upside down.
And the keyboard on there. Turn your keyboard, that's right.
Okay, moving on. Salary publication, we just stuck that on here to let you know that the salary publication is by law published in the paper every year, and that's coming up this month. In July.
Yep.
So the per hour range and whatever yearly will be published. Going on from there, the rest of this was added. James, did you want to say anything about the audit?
I just had a couple things, I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at the audit. I went over it. I did talk to Craig today on a couple things. On page 19, the city is required by law to give us an annual budget. Now, there's always been talk since I've been on the board that there was two budgets. The budget that the board saw and the budget that was sent to Lincoln.
There was never two budgets.
So the budget that we saw is the one that okay. Did we have a discrepancy at one time that there was two budgets?
What happened, James, was that because of whatever reasons, I don't even remember now, it's been a while back, we have to publish in the paper what is a guesstimate of what we're going to want in the property tax. And so basically we did what many people preparing a budget do, which is say, I want 50 cents per 100 dollars worth of property, and say, start with that, and that's what we're going to get, and work backwards, so we'll expense these things out, and they were guesstimates.
Sure.
We needed to get it published. I don't know how many days ahead of the time it has to be, so we needed to meet that deadline. When the budget was finished, it was sent to the county and to the state. As always, if it did not get to the board members, that was an oversight, never intended to be anything. All they had to do was come in and get a copy.
Okay. Is that on PDF by any chance? Could you email it to me, please?
I don't know, but we can scan
Scan
it.
an email, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Talking to Craig, I know he visited with you, and I saw some emails back and forth. It seems like we're still kind of doing the same thing over and over and over. There's some procedures here that they recommended, and one of them is on page 3 of the account, and there's several here. Separate person performing the documents achievement. Are these procedures that
Page
we
3,
have?
now page 3 at the very beginning, or did he,
I got 2 of them sent to me, got all the,
do they restart? Anyway,
yeah, the restart. And I guess my question, have we implemented procedures?
So tell me again where you are.
So if you go, so it starts back up here.
The second set.
This is page 1, Cheryl, looks like this.
Okay.
And if you go to page 3 on that document, there at the top of page 3.
The lack of such procedures?
Yep.
And then they repeat that constantly. The lack of the procedures is a risk of.
And then I guess my question to that is, it sounds like this is what got us in trouble in the past.
Yeah, but they don't write that up as, that's not a material thing. This is not, they have different levels of criticism, if you will. And one thing I thought Mr. McNally said very well one time, he said, their job is to find something to criticize. So if they find the same little things all over and over and over, they're not finding any big things. If there's criminal and there's material, and material means that it's going to change something, or there's just a better practice. So, and that's probably not very well defined, but I think they define it in here somewhere. The segregation of duties between the clerk and the treasurer has always been an issue because Crofton has always combined those two positions into one person.
Okay.
The city has never, well, take it back, I think Charlie had the title of treasurer. But then we were back to one person, see, with Marla Wortman, and then with Kathy, and then with Lisa. It was one person that was both clerk and if you look in our statute, it even talks about there's this duty and this duty, but if they're combined, then they have all those duties. But the primary duty of a clerk and treasurer is, a clerk is to keep the paperwork and the files and so forth and so on. And they kind of tack on this late night job. And the treasurer tends to be the one that keeps track of bank accounts and writes the checks, et cetera, et cetera. Either way, you can be a signer of the checks. You have to have 2 signatures, always, one being the mayor. That's written in statute. So when you have, what they always say is if you, anytime two people looks at something, you cut down on error.
Right.
So,
Right.
we're trying to, we spent time in there trying with the girls, but how can we make sure that we catch all errors? There is no total guarantee.
No.
But if two people look at it, so we've looked at, like, one person makes out the deposit ticket from the same checks that the other person entered the paid on the bill with those checks. Then you say, oh, our totals match.
Right.
Before it goes to the bank. So we're trying to work out some of those things.
So there you have put some procedures in place.
And all we'd have to, and they said, all you gotta do is then initial two people. So the swimming pool, we asked the girls, the people down there, whoever turns us in, to initial those that they counted that money. These girls will initial it again, then it goes to the bank, and they count it again.
Okay.
So the more people we have
Touching, or-
into that.
Okay. Okay. That, I just, there are just a couple things, that I just was curious that we've had.
Right.
And put in some new procedures.
The biggest, and I will say the biggest problem, and on that same page mentions the payroll, James, and that has been an emphasis because the cafeteria 125 says that neither the employer nor the employee has to pay income tax on the monies that they put into a cafeteria 125. The original 125 was a plan, I think, probably by a lot of insurance companies that may have started that as an overseer. I first ran into it years ago as a teacher where you would say, okay, I'm going to put $60 of my salary into this cafeteria plan, and I don't have to pay Social Security on it, I don't have to pay income tax on it, the school district doesn't have to pay on it, so everybody saves money. Then I would take my bills, my babysitting, or my doctor bill, or whatever that list of things is basically what's deductible on a Schedule A, on an income tax form. And the school district would pay that for me. Well, guess what? I couldn't guess exactly what that was going to cost. So at the end of the year, the district didn't have to pay me the rest of it. So it could be a money loser. So those lost popularity real fast. Now they have what they call a PPO, which is a paid premium only. So there's no guesswork. So the city, long time ago, came up with, they will put $500 towards a PPO. That's one of our full-time people's benefit. But it got put into the computer with before tax, pre-tax, after tax, this and that, it was scattered all over. And then all of those hours were scattered through all the funds, which they need to be. But since nothing was in a central location, you couldn't tell who had paid what was paid for. That's why if you look in your general fund under 6103, you're going to find all the wages. And at the end of the month, I take the wages and the benefits and put them into the other funds so that all of the wages and all of the benefits are together in one spot. And I can go right down and say $1,500 was paid for the IRA or the Cap 125. So I know that's paid. So it just simplifies the time spent in it. However, because, and QuickBooks actually will do it. If you set it up right, it'll say this is a PPO, and it'll take it out of there, and it doesn't get taxed. But it's taken us a while to get that set up correctly.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, anybody? Got it?
Do you know what they specifically mean about that last statement where it says board official proceedings include the claim approved?
Is that on that same page?
Yeah, it's the last of the bullet points on page 3 that they have. It says the board official proceedings include the claims approved.
Which we do. We approve the claims.
Yeah, but why is that something we should work on if it's already, why did they?
Because there was some that weren't.
Yeah, if you look in there, there was a couple that were missed.
Something was left off of this. They don't miss a thing, I'll guarantee you.
There were some,
They'll see that double, that has 2 of them on that.
So at some point in time, there were claims that weren't.
Well, probably what happened was that there was like that list of pre-approved or estimates. Probably one of those got paid that didn't get typed on the list. I just talked with Mr. Stevens about that. If we change vendors, for example, see, we changed from Blue Cross to United, and then there's a few other things that come up that they need to be paid when they come out so that we don't get dinged with something. Bank fees, for example, like our deposit box and stuff. They didn't send us a bill or anything, and then, oh, well, this was supposed to be paid. So sometimes it's nice to be able to just say, oh, okay, we'll pay it. But do we need to make a list? And he's researching that a little bit. So when and where and at what time. We want to make a whole new list for you guys to look at so you know exactly where it's going and so forth. And if we need to do a new resolution on it, we can do that.
Thank you.
if you look at the bottom of page 1, go back, it shows you what they did.
Okay. Nothing else there?
I'm looking on page 8, probably the second last page of my booklet here. And it says the city paid one company twice, resulting in duplicate payments. You know, how could that happen? I mean,
Because it was
Art's garbage service on 9/1/2020 was paid $49.52.60. And then Art's garbage service on 9/28/2020 paid the same amount of money. Now, how do you, we got receipts, how did that happen twice then?
Because if I remember the circumstances on that, we got an email with the bill, and then we got a bill through the mail, and it was a pre-approved.
So the
thing.
email, if we
It
get
was
an
the
email.
same bill instead. Notice that one is at the first of the month and one is at the end of the month, so it was a mistake of maybe that was the next
But we're
month.
not supposed to pay bills unless we have a paper copy.
No, that's a prepaid.
Art's garbage is?
That's a pre-approved.
But you should have it in your books that you already paid them, though.
Yeah, and it's about, yes, it was a mistake, Larry. Nobody's denying that. As we just said, less mistakes are made when 2 people check everything. We have a client, a water user that made a mistake in their check writing and gave us a $10,000 check. Everybody makes mistakes. We had a company that called us and said, would you send us another check? Said, why? Said, we lost yours. Well, till you look for it, maybe not. Well, the UPS lost it. We didn't lose it. So we kind of had to wait on that to see what happened. Those things happen. We get checks that have to come back and wait because somebody forgets to write the amount the same in the numbers as on the line, they get biased. Sometimes we get post-dated checks because somebody doesn't want it to come out of their account till the 1st, but they send it to us on the 15th. We don't catch it. The bank sends it back to us. All those little things happen on a daily basis. Some days are better than others.
Then on the bottom of page 8, do we have constant issue with having vendors that do not let us be taxed, non-taxed? Is that
Say that again.
on the bottom of page 8? It says where we don't have to pay sales tax on things.
We never have to pay sales tax if we give them their number and they accept it. We've tried to get a little hard-nosed, and if they don't want to take it, we don't do business with them.
Okay, because one of the bills we had tonight that Larry showed up from Dunham's, I believe it was, had a tax on it.
Yeah, we had some bills in there that had,
On what?
Oh,
some of
if it
them,
was from Duncan's, probably the whistles that Lacey
That-
got.
yeah,
And
Lacey
they don't
got
have a
theirs, yeah.
tax-free number. We didn't know she was gonna get them.
Okay.
so
Yeah, we might be that
so if
close.
an employee goes and buys something, and he gets charged sales tax, then.
If I approve it ahead of time, that's one thing. If not, Nikki will tell you different times she said, I'll eat the tax
Well,
if
if
I
you
have
look at the
to.
bills, there's a couple other ones that had sales tax on the slip paper, you know, and I was wondering, I thought the city is exempt from tax.
It is, and as I just said, we are trying to get that under control so that if they don't want to accept our exempt position, then maybe we don't do business. Remember way back that we went in and bought computers at Walmart, three of them, I think, in my term. And we went to them specifically with our sales and said, we have a sales tax number, and the lady in managing position said, we don't accept that, you're not on our list. We needed the computer, we bought it, brought it home. Since then, we have taken our sales tax number, gone into the store and said, here it is, get us on your list or we're done doing business. We now have that. They gave us that, a code number that we can use to access that. Menards has had us for a long time. Everybody in town, of course, has our number.
Well, there was a bill in town here that, in the bills, that showed that we paid sales tax on 2 different occasions, so. I'm just wondering,
Who?
one was fixing the police car.
I didn't see a tax on that.
Well, the bill shows that there's sales tax on there.
We'll check it out.
Well, and another
Okay.
one had a slip that, I don't know if Larry bought something and they had sales tax on that slip that they ran off for him. I don't remember where it is in there, but it's in the bills.
Will you,
That's why it's in here, because apparently the auditors found something too.
there's going to be a change in Menards in the way they do that process. We have to have a barcode. So we need to go to them and reapply. Because we were out, the night I was there, we had like 3 days left of that process we had been doing. Now you have to have a barcode. They can't let you just bring your number, it won't work anymore, but
Good.
if somebody check into that.
Good.
Good.
That's a good control, because if somebody gets your number, they can be buying stuff all year with your sales tax number.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm for that. I'm all for that. So, and there's things that, you know, that are emergencies, that we're gonna pay sales tax if we need it. That's just, but we try to do everything locally. I have recommended that we do as much locally as we can. So, they all have us. Okay. James again.
Yeah, pool update. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at the pool. Miller did a great job with that. And I had a couple people contact me. If they want to be recognized. We recognize them.
Yeah, Aaron,
I just saw it on the agenda, so as pool updates, so I was, okay. The pool committee would like to create a Crofton Municipal Pool Facebook page to post updates.
just on fundraising efforts and even the current pool hours and swimming lesson information, maybe some fun pictures that they share. Since I'm a city employee, I guess I would like to work on that. Since it's a city pool, I didn't want to just create something without the city's approval.
You can go right on our website too. There's a Facebook, it's already a Crofton Facebook.
A lot of area communities that are building different pools have a specific Facebook page for their pool.
Well, you're the head of the pool committee, so you could do that, I would assume.
I just would like the city's approval. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, the only thing I would check down on that is, and I'm not familiar with this, so I'm not trying to be critical. I mean, I think the more advertisement, free advertising you get, the better it is.
Yeah.
Is I don't know how other places deal with photographs of people, whether you have to get their permission or not. Do you understand? That's the only thing that would come to my mind on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I like that. So I have the city's okay to do that. Perfect. Since I'm the chairman of the pool committee, I guess I would like to see, is it possible to see like copies of the bank statements for those specific fundraising accounts? And because at the bottom of we sent out an alumni newsletter fundraiser thing saying, hey, we've got this going on. We would like to, if you would like to donate, here are 3 different avenues to do it. There's a slip at the bottom that if they donate at a bank, that at the city accounts or the foundation, that they get a slip at the bottom. So I didn't know if those have been turned into the city office. But we would like to send thank you cards to these people, thanking them for their donations, and also just keep a running tally of the donations as they come in, so we know kind of what is going on.
I'm going to turn that over to Mike because we talked about that briefly before we came in.
The only concern that I've got is whether or not there would be, so you'd be talking about sending, you would not be publishing these names, is that right?
No.
Okay, because we don't know whether or not somebody would, did it anonymously or something like that. I mean, I think if you could get a name that they're gonna write just a personal note for them where nobody else knew, I think you'd be okay with that.
Yeah, we wouldn't put anything in the newspaper or it would be broadcasted around here. It's just, we would like to thank them for their donation.
Sure.
But I know, like, if you wanted to, if I were to request access to, like, the bank statements, it would need a motion from the council to have access to that. I'm not asking to go online and view everything. I'm just asking to call the bank and say, hey, can I get a balance of?
Well, I think they could get you the names without seeing the bank statement, right?
Okay. I guess I would like to get a running total of.
I get that. That's
We'll
always
get you-
in that's always in the financials every month.
We can get you the amounts and the names.
That's what's in there. It's in there.
Like real time?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for all your work.
Thank you.
And then I just want you guys to know we're discussing different fundraisers and different grant opportunities, and we'd like to work with the city and see what we can all work on together and whatever entities get them involved. And if anyone has any ideas on fundraisers, we would love to hear them. So.
Good job.
Have you thought about a town hall type meeting where you get people, could bring people up to date with what the engineers are doing?
I talked to Dave Pinky about that. He was getting me information on what they do with that, because they will come into the community and give an update on where they're at and what steps need to happen and everything, and it makes it a nice
And maybe,
project.
and the council probably needs that also.
Oh, for sure.
At this point, we're kind of lost. Yes.
Just to clarify, the council did vote on the plan for the renovation of the pool, right?
Yes.
And the location?
Right.
That was all in that one vote, I believe. I'd have to go back and look at it.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
I had one other thing that was brought to me by Nikki. Do they do an inventory of all the products in the pool daily?
They have not been.
were they requested to do that?
I requested an inventory, the auditors requested an inventory.
Daily or monthly or?
No, we talked about that. Nikki tried that last year with marking everything that was sold, like if they sold this, it was marked.
Right.
When they get hit by a lot of kids, although I don't know how many could be at once, but then it's maybe hard to do that. I suggested maybe, if you know there's 10 ice cream bars in a box, you make note of when you put 10 in there and when it's gone, and once a week you know how many boxes you sold. But there should be something.
Yeah, I agree. Weekly. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. I did inventory on Sunday, and then I will do it at the beginning of the month in August. I will do it once a month. And then when we bring new product down, we will just add 15 Dippin' Dots, add 8 fudgesicles. So that should suffice for what Cheryl wants. I did not see in the auditor's report regarding this swimming pool that they wanted it marked down for the inventory. There was nothing mentioned in the report, which you guys have, I believe.
Well, because the pool wasn't open last year, so there wasn't anything in there about the pool.
Right, but there was nothing in the auditor's report either saying he requested to have an inventory.
Did you
When
see the
there
year?
is a snack item.
Did you see the year before, Nikki?
Did you bring it up then? No.
Okay.
No, it wasn't. But also when I called over to Hartington, Bloomfield, and Yankton, they don't have to do a report either. So I don't know why Crofton would have to. When there, 2 other towns here are part of Nebraska.
We'll get that page from the auditor to you.
That's fine.
Yeah. And
Arlene,
just so you know that I'm not making something up, that they ask that there be better control on the cash and the inventory at the pool.
That's when the inventory sheets I gave you tells you what was sold for concessions and all the receipts. So you do have that. So, but like I said, I did it on the 6th and I'll do it again on August 6th. And then when the pool closes. And that'll give Arlene a total of what she wants, or you want, or Marlon.
Maybe we can,
Because that, at the beginning of the month, tells you what we had, it tells you what we added, and then at the beginning of the next month, it'll give you the
and is there
inventory.
some reason that can't be done weekly?
I just see no reason in it,
Okay.
honestly.
Well,
And then there was also.
I'll go back and
dig
dig out some sheets and see what the auditor suggested on that.
Yeah, I'll go straight to it.
Well,
I do have a message into him.
okay.
Okay.
Is that it?
Good. I'm good.
There was also another thing, the guards had asked the ones who work the holiday if they get overtime for working a holiday, which I did find out they're seasonal workers, so seasonal workers do not get overtime.
Right.
Or time and a half, sorry, time and a half.
Which
So
is
that
overtime.
would answer that question there, yep.
Okay. So like there was a pay period. Are we good on the pay period?
And the paper, I'll get it figured out, so I'm not gonna worry about it.
The pay period is what is dictated by the labor law. It says that if your pay period starts on the 1st, that you count 7 days. If you have over 40 hours in that 7 days, then you go into overtime.
But we don't pay overtime.
Right, I asked them not to pay overtime at the pool.
Proceed.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I guess that would be up to the council if you want to say work all the hours you want to at straight time. But they've got eight guards, you would think they could cover that without going into overtime, probably.
I'm gonna speak again on that.
Yes?
On that issue right now, we are having swimming lessons to where some of the guards are working 10-hour days because of that, because of the swimming lessons. So the guards' hours are gonna be very high for these 2 weeks. And there's no way around it.
And how many guards do you have on?
I have 8 guards,
per
but
day?
not every guard can work during swimming lessons.
And during the day, how many guards Do we have
3 guards.
3 guards on duty?
Uh-huh.
I think this has probably been something that's been an age-old problem. The kids that work there know that during swim lessons, they're gonna put in a lot of hours, you know.
And they have to, there's just no way around it.
There's no way around it.
No, and there's multiple kids signed up, so 4 swimming lessons. What'd you say?
Missed last year too.
Yeah, they did miss last year, so there's multiple kids doing swimming lessons. And then I decided that the guards cannot do private lessons on their own time and get paid on their own time. So therefore, they're gonna do lessons paid by the city on the clock too. So
Well,
I gotta get that figured in also.
Why don't you get some of those, you know, compile some of those hours and maybe, you know, between.
I'm doing the best I can to make sure that they only get 40 hours.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just thought maybe
there's-
if you wanted
I can
some
show
help, you could
everybody
talk to
and you
somebody.
guys can try to figure it out, but we won't do any better than I'm doing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Is that-
Yeah.
James, are you satisfied with that?
Yep.
Aaron, there is a report time for economic development.
Okay, I'm gonna go super fast, or at least try to. I would like the council to discuss having a survey worked on by myself and Northeast Nebraska Economic Development to discuss childcare. And before my previous person with Northeast left, he had sent me several different surveys that had been used in Randolph and Verdigris, and then they had an online way of filling them out. And I guess I would like the city, I would like to know if this is something that I could do, put together and put in the water bills. Even just a sheet saying this is how you do it, and you can scan a code or go to a website, and if they need an actual paper copy, make those paper copies available, so we're not running off a million surveys, but they can do it on their phone or their computer. But just to gauge the need in our community for childcare.
Childcare.
And if the first question, I think, should be, do you have or will you have any child in daycare? And if they answer no, then they're done. Like, there's no need to fill out the survey at all. I think it's a good way to gauge the interest, and it also is a first step in they need to apply for grants. It shows the need that your community needs for this.
I think everybody is totally convinced that we need to take care. I don't think it takes a survey to tell us that, but it takes the surveys to get the grants. And
Yes, that's the part of it. And I would like to put it in the water bills.
I don't have an issue with that. I wouldn't want a dozen pages that we paid extra, but
No, I don't
extra
want to do
pages
that
are going
either.
to cost
There'd be like
anymore.
6 stamps on everyone's note.
And it saves that.
Could you-
I would also suggest you get that page up on, like you said, on your computer.
Oh yeah, I want to
and
put it
stuff.
everywhere that we can. They can type it in at the grocery store if they see it. Like, I would like to talk with everyone and just see if we can get it done. Put it
And my
around.
understanding is there is a daycare being
Yep.
built, so that's the other thing that you can help with is the number of kids that will be accommodated and how many kids need it and so forth.
Right,
and
so
so on.
people in our community are pregnant or currently pregnant, and some are taking their children to 2 different daycares or having to go to 2 different communities. And we want to keep them here. So having that, I think, is a good first step in getting a building block to going forward. So I just wanted to ask the council and you guys what you thought. So
Okay, put your survey together and get it into.
yeah, okay.
Those will go out usually around the 20th.
Okay.
If you want it in this month, we try to get it out
15th?
Yeah.
between count the 15th. Yeah.
Okay.
We
And
say
then
no later than the
I can
20th.
help with putting that in the water bill. I did water bills in Bloomfield for lots of years, so I'm a professional stuffer and envelopes, so I can help with that if you need to.
Okay, thank you.
Also,
Oh, go ahead.
okay. Per the Crofton Economic Development Plan, I would like to work with the city attorney to draft paperwork for business revolving loans and grants. I researched area communities that have LD 840 funds and would like to use a few to create a proper form with guidelines for Crofton to use. We would then present it to the council for approval. We would also need to create an advisory board to process applications. This would be a great way to utilize LB 840 funds to assist Crofton. So, I guess I would like to work with the attorney, but I need, I assume I need permission to do that. And I don't have a liaison on Economic Development Board currently, so I don't know.
Bob? Did you want that?
Yeah, that's me.
Bob wants to work with economic development.
We got that covered.
Okay. So can I work with the attorney and Bob on that?
Yeah, but just so you know, Bob just loves this, so you got to be ready to put up with his.
That's fine. I just want to make sure that I.
Right, Bob?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure that I can contact the attorney without myself getting charged for it or something, so.
Yeah, just limit your time, because he's.
Yeah.
He
I'll
likes
send-
he
I'll
likes
send
to,
it to my
yeah, he likes to
attorney.
talk.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Thank you.
Always. Okay. Sounds good?
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, somebody asked me about that grant that is kind of a stimulus by the feds that will be given out through the Nebraska. And Arlene's done the paperwork on that. We've got our number and so forth and so on. And we'll probably, I think Millers are trying to help use that to help pay for the sewer that's directly involved with infrastructure like sewer and water. And I think and I don't know if this is an estimate, a guesstimate of what, but it is based upon your budget. They have, in fact, found the budget, of course, at the state, verified it with us, blah, blah, blah. 59, was that 59?
58, close to 58 plus.
Yeah, a little about 58,000 plus is the value of it. So we can always use that.
I got one thing I forgot to talk about, the finances. I had the banker in Crofton text me, and I'll read exactly what he sent to me. Why is the city still messing with another pool account in Fordyce? Do we know anything about this, or is it the pool committee themselves?
City hasn't opened another pool
No, it's
account.
the same one that's
He-
been
This is what he sent me today, and I forgot to tell when we had the finances. He says, why is the city still messing with another pool account in Fordyce? Is there anything to that? The banker sent this to me.
What I've just said to you, that I know nothing about that.
That's,
Okay.
I'll find out more
The
about
city
it.
is not sponsored.
Aaron?
It's the Cedar Security account, yeah, that has been established for.
There's one there, right?
Yeah.
But
that
if
is
you're
Cedar
talking
Security.
about another one.
He says
No,
another
there's
one.
no new one. That's the one, that's a pool, that's a designated pool account.
I'm going to guess, and I may be wrong, but that alumni letter went out and listed all of those.
Yep.
That reaction may be a knee-jerk reaction to why are we still messing with that other one when we have these here? I don't
When
know.
that letter,
You have to talk to
when that letter went out, were they supposed to send it to,
That was the alumni. I don't know
I
anything
don't know
about that.
nothing about it.
It went out to all alumni.
But where were they supposed to send it to the
They gave
Crofton?
them the different options that the city has designated 2 accounts for pool. And then it also has the foundation pool account, a designated restricted fund for the pool. for the
City,
foundation.
let me correct something, Aaron. The city only has one designated pool for donations. The second account that is restricted there is the lost funds, and we don't mix those.
I thought that's where,
If it's restricted, it goes into the general fund. Unless I'm wrong. Do we have another account? Now you got me thinking. Tell me again.
isn't that the account that was set up with the, like, dueling pianos and everything that was
That's at
fundraised?
Cedar.
Oh, isn't that what I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding, but I thought that's the Fortis account. that is-
Right. But I thought you said there's 2 at Crofton.
No, I'm sorry. I just meant there's 2 accounts.
Okay.
One
Okay.
at Farmers
All right.
and one at
Yeah,
Cedar.
just clarify. Yeah, we just
Sorry.
we have the lost account that is in our general checking, but is restricted. That comes from the sales tax. We have a whole separate bank account, which is the donations that was started with the kids from the school's contribution.
I will find out from the
And
banker
then
what he's.
Fordyce
what
was
he's
set
talking
up
about
there
tomorrow.
years ago, yeah.
I'll call the banker tomorrow and find out.
It's not a new account though.
No, it's not a,
No.
Do you have those bank account balances that you can import for them?
on the,
I think it's, is it that, under your bill?
it's on the,
Under your bill.
well, oh, right here. Sorry, yes. Just, yeah, for your information, the swimming pool account at our local bank received, in the month of June, new deposits of $662. And that came in from, out of towners or whatever. Cedar Security had a deposit of $25. So I think there's some value to the two, because if people want to walk in off the street and they live over that way, there's nothing, it's just sitting there. Cedar charged us $1 fee for maintenance for a long time. So when we went over to sign up all the new people for the checking accounts and so forth, they said, we've got enough money in the account. We have like a now account, so now we get paid instead of paying out that.
Those balances on those accounts?
The balance at Cedar is $18,913.77. At the account here in town, it's $3,544.29. Okay. I think maybe, maybe you should think about something like, remember the thermometer thing or something that you could put up, something that shows what's going on? Anyway, are you finished, Aaron? You done with
I'm good
economic?
as long as I can get those slips so we can get thank you cards, but that's, yeah. That's perfect. Thank
Say
you.
that again?
As long as I can get, there's like slips. Did the bank turn in slips to you at the, like a little slip?
We can
at the
get a
bottom?
list.
I'll get you a list because I didn't know you wanted to save them.
Okay. I didn't know where they went, so
Yeah.
thank you.
But I got names as we put the deposit in.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so Arlene will get that for you.
Okay. Yeah, and going forward, if they turn them in, that would be wonderful if I could get an address. Thank you.
Okay, so we are at the end of our agenda, so if there is no further business, I would entertain a motion to, let's mention that August 2nd is the next meeting, that we're back to that first Monday, and that's all there is.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by James,
I'll second.
second by Larry to adjourn at 8:52. Oh, we need to vote. James.
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
And Isla. Vote to adjourn. And Bob. Okay, thank you. Yeah, sorry about that.